Hello, students, families, and fellow parishioners of St. Therese Parish. And trying to broaden the connection to all of you and trying to keep up that personal relationship in this time of pandemic and isolation and the like of somebody's Jumanji game going a bit too long, as it were. Uh, I've been asked to make several videos on various topics or prayers to record or anything of that nature in which to be of help in however I can. This is my first pandemic as a priest, hopefully my last, but first pandemic as a priest, so we're kind of learning by doing. But one of the topics, or one of the things that I was broached with, that people talk to me about, is like, hey, you don't have to necessarily talk about theology or the mass or prayers or whatever. You could talk about other points of interest in other people's lives, and you could connect with them that way. And I was like, okay, so let's try that. So we'll start with sports, football, especially sports in general, because they're all canceled. That's not funny. It's a little funny. You gotta laugh or you gotta cry. One of the two. But people have asked me before, they've shown curiosity before of why I like football so much. Why is it my favorite sport that even after the football season was done, it was football I talked about in the homilies or mentioned in the homilies. God is always prevalent. He's always the main attraction, why we're there. It's meant to help get people to go to God. Anyway, why that instead of like, hey, it's baseball season, talk about baseball, or basketball season, talk about basketball? Why do you keep going to the Chiefs? Hey, the Chiefs are done. They won the Super Bowl. The Royals are playing now. You're going to talk about them? It's like, maybe. Why football? And before I begin, I should preface, I have nothing against any of the other sports. All the other sports are wonderful. I'm an introvert. I love my reading. I love my comic books. I love my video games. I love my board games. I love television movie. I love sci-fi and fantasy. That's my main draw and attraction. But I love sports too. There's an appreciation for sports. I have a cousin who was in the U.S. Nationals Championship in women's gymnastics, Gwen Spidel, in the '96 team. I have an uncle who was in the '84 U.S. Olympics gold medal basketball team, Joe Kleine, and played professional basketball for 15 years, I think it was. Apologies, Joe, if I'm off on that. Um, so I like, my sister runs track, my mother ran track, I ran track. I played soccer and basketball and football and track and field, typically long distance, in grade school, middle school, and the like. So yeah, so I love sports, but why is football my favorite? Uh, and please bear with me on this. Give me a little leeway first. I like football the most because of all the sports I've seen, and I'll admit my knowledge is not an expert on sports, but of all the sports I've seen, it's the most like chess. It's the most, for lack of better term, intellectual. And that's not a fair term, because when we think of intellectual, we think of like Stephen Hawking's or great philosophers or metaphysics or doctors of science or what have you. I don't mean that it's smarter than all the other sports and all the other sports are dumb. I don't know what I'm impersonating there. Um, I think Fry from Futurama. Anyway, I don't mean it like that, but there's a greater degree of strategy and tactical thinking that's involved in football that you don't see in a lot of other sports. So a lot of the sports, not that there isn't strategy or not that there isn't thinking or not that you're trying to not outplay people. So like poker, obviously you're playing against the other players, so there's a lot of bluff or not bluff or what have you. Or there's a lot of mind games that can go into track and field, for instance, when you're doing those relays against other people. And hey, do I do the burst of speed now and get the head of time, or do I conserve energy and then do the burst of speed later? Or, I mean, you see it in boxing all the time. They kind of will psych each other out or try and psych each other out and the like. And again, not saying there isn't some degree or an element of strategy or tactics that go into that. And you see this too in basketball and baseball and soccer, that they've got plans and strategies and team meetings and team practices and all the like. But in all of those, because of the nature of the sport, strategy tends to take a backseat, I guess is the word for it. It's not there. It's not equal. The primary focus on the vast majority of sports is basically athleticism. When it's a relay between swimmers or a diving competition, or it's two people in tennis or a team in volleyball, soccer, baseball, basketball, um, NASCAR, so much of it, because of how the sport is just so quick. Basketball is back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Soccer is back and forth, back and forth. Volleyball, racquetball, all these things. I mean, in races in particular, you're trying to beat a time. It is just go. And so at that point, the athleticism takes center stage. And pretty much from that point, yeah, there's on the spot and in the heat of the moment thinking and strategizing, all that fun stuff. I get that. But it's basically a pure contest of strengths of will and speed and endurance and all of that fun stuff. Football, on the other hand, has built into the game a stop start system. Every down, when it's over, stops the game and you reorganize the lines and you go. And football is intentionally built to be a again, I don't have the right terms for this, but more of a thinking game. There are immense playbooks that both sides, coaching and executive staff, think of and develop and plan ahead of for the players they have or the players they want or the type of team they want. And they drill and memorize these dozens of plays, offensively, defensively, special teams, and whatever, to have chess moves, to outthink each other. And each side coaching staff is trying to outthink the other side with the repertoire of stratagems and plays that they have at their disposal that they have trained with their team on to win in that particular down. And then, after they've done their thinking, they hand that off to the team. Here's the strategy, here's the play, make it happen. And then it falls to the athleticism of the players to put into motion the thought or the strategy from the coaching staff. I guess actually, now that I think about it, a more apt analogy isn't chess, it's war, like Risk or Stratego or all those other battle games. Because you can have an excellent coaching strategy, but if your players aren't cohesive or there's a lax in the line or something like that, strategy falls apart. Consequently, you can have terrible coaching strategies, but if your players are really good, they can make up for, through their sheer athleticism, the faults and failings of their coaching staff. So it's a more encompassed celebration of the entire person, I guess is the word for it. I don't mean for this to sound condescending. I'm not trying to be condescending. I'm trying to share a joy. I apologize if it comes off like that. Well, again, all the sports are wonderful. My Uncle Joe and my cousin are gonna have my head if this comes across as mean. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to put down, just trying to convey why I love it. And so you, the audience member, can watch that and appreciate that in real time. You get to watch and understand, if you know the game and know the plays and have been following the teams and their strategies, you can basically see the mental processes and the mental chess game that goes on between the coaching and the players. The players will get involved too. Patrick Mahomes, for instance, when you see the Chiefs, he'll often say, hey, what if we did this? What if we did this? They're involved in the strategy too. They'll have to adapt. They'll do audibles. The quarterback will see something he doesn't like, or the defense will see something they don't like, and they'll switch on the fly too. So the players aren't excused from this. They're involved in it. But you get to see that battle, that strategic, I'm going to try and outthink you chess game in the strategy. And then you get to see, like, hey, here's what the coaches intended, the players intended. And then you get to see that put into the physical aspect, the battle of strength, the battle of speed, the battle of endurance, and see all of that play out. And this is so integral to the game that it literally affects everything they do. No disrespect to other team sports, but it's very easy in a lot of other team sports, basketball in particular, for one guy, because he's very athletically gifted, to kind of steal center stage, as it were. It's kind of why a lot of people like college basketball over professional because it's more team focused and doesn't allow for just one guy to do everything. But in football, you have 11 players on the field for one team every time. All of them have to work together. I don't care how good Patrick Mahomes is. If his offensive line can literally only buy him a second and the defensive line is just pouring through every time, his talent doesn't mean anything. You actually kind of see this sadly with Andrew Luck, that he's just getting so badgered and just beaten because they didn't properly take care of him, that he retires. Same with running backs or wide receivers, despite their talents, if they don't have a cohesive unit and if they haven't been building cohesively as a team for that unit, then the skills and talents of the individual player, they never shine because he never gets past the front line. He's bottlenecked. He's broken. He's only able to shine when that offense breaks the gap for him, or the defense is only able to shine because their defensive line holds the line, as it were. It's why the O line and D line are sometimes the most underappreciated heroes of the game, because they don't typically get to make the points or the scores and therefore the celebrations, but they're integral. Without them, the whole thing falls apart. So it really hampers home a sense of teamwork and camaraderie and interdependency. You cannot solo football. I don't care who you are, you can't do it. It doesn't allow for it. I guess maybe unless you're playing a really terrible team, like Space Jam. I know that's not football, that's basketball, but if the aliens come down, they stole all the professional players' powers and skills, then maybe then. So you get, but again, it encompasses the whole. So even things like the draft, if you're following the teams, hey, they are a team that is trying, their strategy is built on the run, or their strategy is built on these particular pass plays because of their quarterback can't really leave the pocket. He doesn't have the ability for it. So they've got to build their passing around this. Or their strategy is built on being just such a solid, impervious defense that all offenses fall apart, and then their offense can do whatever. And so in knowing the strategies the coaches have and knowing the strategy the team has that they're building around, you can have an appreciation then when it comes to the draft that you're like, okay, if this is what they're going for, or if they really need this because their team's falling apart, they should be doing X. They should be going for this guy or this guy or this guy. It's assembling your chess pieces, as it were, or your soldiers in Risk, as it were. You should be guarding this part of Australia, or you should be having South America to defend upon. You shouldn't be going for Asia. That's 5 countries to defend, and it only gives you 7 people. What are you doing? Love Risk. Risk's a great game. And so it adds then to the excitement when teams will make terrible draft decisions, or like the Texans, for instance. Hopkins, they let go of DeAndre Hopkins, the arguably #1 receiver last year, and they let go of him for not good, because general manager Bill O'Brien apparently in charity, not making smart decisions. So you can actually Texans would be a pretty good example of talent bailing out the coaches. Cowboys too, Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott and Cooper and the like. But then you can see that, and then going forward, okay, well, whatever their strategies may be, because they made this poor draft decision, their ability to carry it out's been hampered, and you really should have gotten an equivalent exchange for that, or what have you. So the entire process is built around then that combat of will, that stratagems. Our strategy is going to beat your strategy, and then assembling a team that can work together as a unit to carry out that vision and that strategy, those chess plays. And every down of the game is, okay, did the chess play go as good as we wanted, better, worse? Now adapt to the strategy. We really wanted that running play to get us 8 yards. It got us 2. Now we're looking at instead of a 2nd and 2, we're looking at a 2nd and 8. We got to adapt the strategy. Hey, we really thought that zone defense would stop Brady, but he eats it like it's candy. We got to adapt the strategy. And then you can see teams that don't or can't and how they will fall apart on that. And again, I like it for all of those reasons. I like the chess aspect. I like the the risk aspect or the stratagems that are more involved because football takes the time to stop and start every play to allow for that thinking, that stratagem, that tactics to have a more equal role in the sport. Whereas so many sports, because they happen start, stop, and or I mean not start stop. I mean they just go back forth, back forth, back forth, back forth, back forth. It's more on the fly, on the fly. And again, there's wonderful things to appreciate in that. You can appreciate, hey, they're off the cuff thinking, hey, their strategy in the moment, hey, look at how they were able to adapt and change as they go. You see all that. All that's wonderful. But for me, the introvert who loves stories, who loves strategy, who loves video games and board games and all of these things, therefore the sport I most uh, empathize with and the sport that I most enjoy is the one that, to me, best reflects or connects with those other hobbies I enjoy. I love the board games and the video games. It's the sport that most connects with the strategy aspect, as opposed to primarily the athleticism. It's the give take or the both and. So yeah, so that's why I like football. That's why football is the one sport I can routinely watch and not lose interest in on television. Any sport in the stadium, I'll enjoy because of the atmosphere and the ambiance, and it's amazing to be there in person. But football is the one sport that I can start to finish, even if it's not the Chiefs, start to finish, watch and hold my attention because it gets my brain instead of just going, wow, that was a really good jump or a really good run, or oh, look, they cut the NASCAR track thing. It keeps my brain actively engaged, trying to examine and watch the strategies of both teams and how well they're executed and carried out, and whether or not the coaching of the players made poor decisions or good decisions, or whether or not they were able to carry out. And again, it keeps me going. So that's why I love football. Real quick, real quick. It's an 18-minute video. I can't. I don't have the virtue of brevity. I'm trying. I just don't have it. Gosh. Real quick. I know we're all hurting from sports being gone at the moment, or you should be. If you aren't, empathize with your neighbor. Share in their crosses to help lighten the load, as it were. As Samwise Gamgee would say, I can carry it a while. Lighten the load. Or share the load. I know we're hurting for sports. Two things that may be of interest to you. There's a YouTube channel I like to follow. His name is Scooter Magruder. Sorry, Scooter Magruder. And his YouTube channel, which I think has like 500,000 subscribers, but he does these like 4-minute how fans react to things, like how the fans of every team of the NBA or the Chiefs or the NFL or whatever react to the agency or react to the playoffs. So he's hilarious. It's clean humor. It's good humor. He's fun. The other, I have been recently introduced to something called marble racing. And there's this gentleman, I think his name's Jelly something. I off the top of my head, I don't have it. Here, I will look it up right quick. The wonders of technology. Jelly's marble runs, but he builds racetracks and builds a stadium around them and races marbles. And there's qualifying races and then multiple races where they tally up points. And there's marbles that are fans holding signs for the other marbles. And he comments on it and treats it like a NASCAR race. So it's got the sound of all the audience booing or cheering or whatever, and all the commentary like the NASCAR drivers, oh, look at the turn, or oh, he cut the guy off, or and it's silly, but it's way more entertaining than it should be. So I offer that as a not a it's not a substitute. Nothing will replace actual sports, but maybe to help ease or dull the pain. Anyway, that's one. We'll if this is well received, or if Father Joe doesn't shut me down, he's way nicer than that. He's an excellent boss, I kid. Maybe we'll talk about like movies or comic books or something else, but wide range of trying to reach out to you guys. If there's anything else that you want from us or need from us or ways in which we can help, I know there's a plethora of things, not just myself and the priest are doing, but so many other wonderful men and women of our parish, teachers, staff, faculty, volunteers, prayer groups, chirp groups, Sarah groups. So many are doing so much. The Saint Vincent de Paul Food Society is doing a wonderful job caring for those in need, especially in this time. Please feel free to help them out. Feel free to check out our Facebook, our website, our YouTube for all the stuff that's happening in our parish. The ministry continues, as it were. We don't stop. The church is still active. Just because we can't have mass in public doesn't mean we aren't praying the mass. The mission of the church won't stop because of a virus. It continues. It just adapts in how it continues. So if there's other ways that we can help you, other things you want us to talk about, other things that we should be doing, you're like, hey, I'd really appreciate it if you did X, Y, and Z. Leave a comment on the Facebook. Send us emails. Reach out to us. This is our first pandemic. We're adapting as we're going. So let us know how we can best help. To all of you, I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless to you all. And as always, go Chiefs. Yes. Almost forgot. Let's open it up. What are the sports that you really enjoy? And the myriad of sports that there are, from football to basketball to Quidditch to marble racing. What are the sports that you enjoy and why? Share your passions for your sports, your why you enjoy them, why you like going to the stadiums or the rings or the arenas for them. What is it about them that makes them entertaining for you to watch and to follow? And make this be a means of which we can share our love for the great gifts that Lord has provided for us, including sports, and a way to stay connected with people. So yeah, why do you like the sport that you love, or why do you love the sports that you love?